Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channels and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and Spotify to continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, and Invisired. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 378 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we had the opportunity of interviewing Robert Scott Bell. And if you want to understand how homeopathy and chiropractic meet, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. Today I have Robert Scott Bell on with me today. This is episode 378 of these podcast episodes we have done over the past 4 years, which I'm really proud of because we are protecting free speech in chiropractic. We do protect the sacred trust in chiropractic. If you don't know what that means, get on your favorite search engine and go search what sacred trust of chiropractic is BJ Palmer stuff. And then go check out what innate intelligence and universal intelligence mean as well, because we support that and subluxation-based chiropractic, which I think is essential. And most people, if you ask them all those words to give us a definition for them, they'd come up empty. So go out there and search for all that really high-end knowledge stuff. And 378, I got Robert Scott Bell. Welcome to Chiro Hustle.
Jim, thanks for having me on board. Anything we can do to light people up and realize the gift that they are and what they're doing in their healing practices, I'm all there with you.
Yeah, I mean, I was asking you like to give me like a snapshot of what homeopathy is and like what all that is and what your degree is in, and I think that's your unique spot. And what we're doing here today is let's talk about your uniqueness in the chiropractic space. Yeah. and how we can help more people with your message.
Well, yeah, I mean, I was raised pharmaceutically and allopathically like so many in the West, and I didn't even know what a chiropractor was growing up, much less a homeopath. I never heard the word homeopathy until I was 24 years of age. I remember encountering my first doctor of osteopathic medicine in terms of bone manipulation when I was a teenager with a nerve pain injury. And I thought, well, that was interesting. He adjusted me and I didn't even know what that was. And then later on in college, I actually was going to a chiropractor for the first time to deal with sports injury issues. And I thought, oh, this is really intriguing. It's a whole different view of the body. And I began to introduce let's say myself, if you will, to this vitalistic view, vital force concept as we have in homeopathy or innate intelligence in chiropractic, all different ways to describe the same thing, that we are energetic beings. And how do we, release that vital force? And I eventually encountered homeopathic medicine. I'd already known chiropractic, and that point was, part of the I say not officially the profession, but in terms of utilization of what you were trained to do as a chiropractor. And eventually I married a doctor of chiropractic who retired to be Dr. Mom. So it's part of the family. And, my journey into natural medicine and vital force medicine was born of my own ailments and illnesses. The first 24 years I was chronically ill. And so working then with chiropractic directly and indirectly with homeopathy, opening up the pathways so that, let's say we talk about altering the physiology by movement, but yet in many cases, chiropractors were reporting to me that a lot of times that these adjustments weren't holding so well. And I was trained homeopathically in terms of detoxification or drainage, which was to support the liver, the kidneys, the colon, the elimination organs, to remove the chemical interferences to normal flow of energy, much less the functioning of every system and organ in the body. So once we were able to help people and chiropractors to do that in their practice, suddenly the things that were obstacles, not because they weren't adjusting right, they were fine, but the body was so chemically toxic that they weren't able to retain the benefit for prolonged periods of time. So I saw this beautiful connection between homeopathy and chiropractic, both working with vital force to make each one of those things work even better.
So you understand the big idea, and you understood the big idea so well that you married a chiropractor, which I think is
Absolutely.
which I think is given to your vital life force.
Oh, for sure. I tell you, if I couldn't be one, I was going to marry one. But my journey, into broadcast healing, so to speak, began in 1999 in Atlanta, and I've been broadcasting for 23 years. You talk about radio, then into now what's known as podcasting. I've been at it for quite a while. I don't even know how many thousands of shows I've done now, 6 days a week.
Yeah, I know that when I first met you, I was super impressed with just the abundance of work that you do and the gift that you give to people through creating a platform. Maybe we could talk a little bit about that through leveraging media
Mhm.
for marketing and why chiropractors might want to consider getting on more radio spots and how they can go about doing that, or getting on more podcast shows and how they can go about doing that.
Well, I think the reality of, a chiropractic, let's say, professional is to exude the energy that you would wish to, and you learned about going through school and doing all the additional things you've done. And a lot of that has to do with a connection that's made that's, human to human, the spirit side of our very existence. And if we cannot have enough, let's say, meetings in persons or outreach in our community, one of the ways that, especially in the last 2 years with the COVID lockdowns and all of that, people have become accustomed to making these connections online via podcasting or even radio that also does that, and or whether it be Zoom meetings or different online platforms. And to really expand there, it kind of sets the stage for even a local community outreach. I mean, I know that I reach people all over the world, but when you have a practice in a particular community, it's not about reaching everybody in the world. It's like, how do we use the platform to reach out locally through social media and other things? I think it's an essential part of the outreach at this point.
Yeah, I think it's a core fundamental part of marketing going forward for people is to, I tell people, draw a big circle around your office, a 7 mile radius, and find people with high level Google reviews or places that you are frequent to,
Hmm.
people that own shops and businesses that you go to, and bring them on and call it a spotlight
Hmm.
and interview them for 20 minutes and get to know them. And now you're the go to doctor in that community as a referral source for everybody that listens to that show. And then you can feature them, you become familiar with them. And it's like taking a professional network group and building a network with these people over the year. And you get
Hmm.
52 new businesses that know who you are if you're a weekly show. And now you're going to be the person that they're going to say, hey, by the way, you just got in a fender bender, go see
Hmm.
Doc. Hey, by the way, your little girl's dealing with colic, go see Doc.
Hmm.
By the way, whatever symptom that it might be, now we know where to send this to. Oh, your teenage daughter's been dealing with migraines for 12 years.
Hmm.
You know, we're going to send you to Doc. Like whatever it might be. A lot of people think that there's a Western medicine approach to finding health,
Yeah.
but now because you took yourself and put you in a position to start a podcast that
Hmm.
interviews local celebrities and local businesses around you, now you're going to be the talk of the town when it comes to giving service and care to people that people just don't know where to go or who to trust.
Yeah, and it's brilliant too because it'd be a natural extension for whoever you interview to say, "Hey, check out my interview," and then of course all of the people they have in their sphere of influence will be introduced to you as well. So there's so much benefit in that regard, but relationship building, but also outreach in a way that we didn't have all those years ago. And this is something that if you're not using it, I don't know what you're waiting for.
Yeah, and I really believe that leveraging media, we have to do it. We have to. I always, kind of get gruff with people. I'm like, start quoting yourself. Like, would you just quote yourself and quit quoting other people?
Hmm.
Like, write your own stuff, become your own writer, and like become interesting. Like, how about that? Like, do that stuff. Like, take your stuff that you say,
Hmm.
like strip it down, make it a Word file, and start plucking out little key things that you say, and create little infographics and create your own stuff. And maybe people will start quoting you someday.
Yeah,
So
if you've forgotten how interesting chiropractic is in reality and how many people still don't know about it. That's astonishing to me. Or even if they've just heard it, but they really don't know the opportunity to make that human connection interaction with the community. Again, great innovations there, what you're doing. And I really like the idea that everybody should have a podcast. When people say, well, why wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't that be competition for you? Like, no, the messages we're sending out need to be out so critically, so desperately at this point. We will not have enough people speaking it, even if everybody almost did. So we need more of these voices. It's going to benefit all of us by doing this.
Well, for me, I like one-to-one. When I'm on an airplane, I tell
Mhm.
people what I do. When I'm somewhere with friends, I tell people what I do. But this gives me the chance to feature a one-to-many.
Mhm.
And I think that sometimes we shut ourselves down and we become either an extrovert or an introvert, and we forget that people need our voices and they need
Yeah.
to have something to connect to. They need something to follow. And that's what I love about what you're doing. You do something 6 days a week, man. Like how do you optimize yourself to keep going for as long as you have?
Well, when you have something you're passionate about, and I think every chiropractor has got to be passionate about what they do, or else I don't know why you're doing it. You naturally want to share that with people. And I found out that I could communicate via this medium, radio, initially, and it was just something that welled up from the innate within me. And then, years later, as the online world transformed itself, I began to do more on that platform, which didn't require anybody to be on radio. It didn't require even me, even though I'm still on radio once a week, but 6 days a week, still broadcasting 2 hours a day. And there's never a shortage of things to do, but I don't recommend it for everybody. If you are in an active chiropractic practice, you still have to dedicate a lot of time to do this kind of podcasting. Once a week is very reasonable. And I'm not saying you can't do more than that, but to bring it, you want to honor those that would spend the time with you on those podcasts, that you bring something of value to them. And interviewing interesting people, as long as you show genuine interest, they're going to be interested as well. That's part of the energy of the exchange, even if it's not all in person via this method. You may even be able to grow it to do these podcasts from your office, and a lot of people do. And if you have the office space, to bring people into the live, I mean, there's a lot of evolutions that can happen here. It's not just a one-off, but still just start once a week, and you'll find out it's just to talk about something you're passionate about. It will draw people in.
Well, one of the things I'm going to share with people that I really like to impress upon others that are considering this is create your dream 100. I learned this from Russell Brunson. Write down 100 people that you would like to have on your show
Hmm.
and to make that list. And then for solo cast, write down 100 topics that you can talk about. And I think that if people just got clear with
Mhm.
the connections that they could make and they got clear with the topics that they're experts on, creating a podcast show, even if it's a solo cast, they would have something that they could release every week that would give people a little bit of a connection to them in this digital era. And I think it would be really good for people. But I just want to turn the page a little bit now with
Mhm.
you. And I want to talk to you about natural healing, natural health. And
Okay.
one of the things I read in your bio was you're an expert in silver and copper therapeutics.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm a neophyte. Tell me how you help people with copper and silver.
Well, I'll tell you, as a homeopath, I wasn't inclined to go into any kind of metals per se, because I was detoxifying my patients, including children, of heavy metals from vaccines and mercury amalgams and things. So when I investigated silver, I was really intrigued by the book many chiropractors have read, The Body Electric by Dr. Robert Becker. And in that book, we found out about this mineral, silver, that was being utilized for regeneration of tissue in animals. And then I began to explore its properties in terms of its broad spectrum antimicrobial benefit, as well as an immunomodulating benefit. And again, the regenerative aspect. And of course, we talk about chiropractic being supportive of regeneration of tissue, because when the nerve flow is there, all things become possible. And so I began to work with silver for my own purposes in my family, and began to see it benefit so many others that were in fear, running back to the allopathic doctor for a toxic chemical cocktail of some kind to eradicate some kind of, whether you call it an infection or something along those lines. And I'm like, that doesn't fit well for a homeopath. I don't want toxic poisons put in anybody. As a chiropractor, you don't want that kind of interference in their body and their nervous system. So utilizing the minerals, including now copper, understanding their pathways of need in terms of even vital flow of nerve flow, for instance, and regenerative capacity and connective tissue integrity, I began to work at what we call micro dosing levels, right? Not bringing amounts of these metals that would be in any way harmful, more akin to homeopathy. And then I was finding regeneration even of neural tissue in terms of MS patients with the help of silver and now copper. And of course, over the past couple of years, even as the chiropractic profession and even the medical profession have embraced various forms of supplementation, They focused a lot on zinc and vitamin C. Both of those minerals, interestingly enough, deplete copper stores from your body. And most people aren't getting copper because the diet has shifted so much over generations now, and they don't absorb much as it is. So bringing the copper back in facilitates protection of the nerves, the brain, the heart, the vascular system, and even issues like you call long COVID. With depletion of copper, the magnesium is not enough to produce the mitochondrial, what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate, the energy center of the cell. So copper is needed as well to facilitate that unleashing of the human potential and the vital force and the innate intelligence. We're not devoid of minerals. We need them. We need to find them in the right form and safe quantities to really light people up again. So that's been a big focal point in addition to my homeopathic and support for chiropractic practice.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, Mango Voice, Community Healthcare Resources, and Invisired. Let's hustle.
I love that because you said the body electric, and all I can keep thinking about is metals as being a conductor.
Yes, and indeed, silver is a very good conductor, as is copper. You know, the lesser conductor metals are very toxic, like mercury and cadmium and arsenic, lead. But aluminum is a conductor, but it's very dangerous to the nervous system, as you know. So working with the metals appropriately based on their properties, it's not a one size fits all, and it's not that all metals are bad or all metals are good. It's really doing a little bit of digging deeper into the properties of each mineral or metal and using them appropriately.
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff that you're talking about. I really, there's so much I'm gonna read this body electric book because I want to learn more because I think that there's everybody I get a chance to touch lives with the show. I pick up a little something from everybody, and people call them gold nuggets.
Yes.
Maybe I'll start calling them copper nuggets.
Right now, we could use some of that. That's for sure. Now, some of the discoveries, Jim, I wrote about in Unlock the Power to Heal that I wrote with my buddy Ty Bollinger some years ago.
I was going to ask you about the book.
And it's a practical guide. It's like the stuff we forgot we should know. And a lot of it's minerally based as well. But there are unique attributes to silver in particular in healing tissue and regenerating tissue, particularly the gut, where we see a lot of damage from modern medicine and other things added to food and glyphosate and Roundup stuff. So a lot of my focus has been how do I heal the gut and regenerate the endothelial and epithelial tissue that's been damaged. And so there's a lot of practical things that people can do and utilize in that as an adjunct to their just home life, much less chiropractic practice.
Well, one of the things that you didn't touch on there is iron. And I know that a lot of people have iron deficiencies, and that's kind of one of the markers that most people get like the red light on, and they're like, "Oh, you have low iron." And by the way, you have low vitamin D.
Yeah.
Like, how do people get stuck in that thing? How do people get like so deficient iron and vitamin D?
Well, Jim, here's going to be some news for you and your audience. 99.9% of anemia diagnoses are wrong. They're not iron deficiencies, they're copper deficiencies, because we cannot utilize the iron in our body that's in abundance without adequate copper stores, without the bioavailable bioactive form of copper. So we see that the utilization of iron for oxygen carrying capacity and many other needs is absent in the absence of copper. In fact, then we get inflammatory conditions. We got iron rusting in our body without copper.
Really?
So that's a huge revelation that we got to go back to some of the original literature on it that, we've been misguided by medicine so much that we've fallen prey to these things. Iron deficiency, it's like, it's not happening. It's copper deficiency.
And it's like, the whole cholesterol thing like that. I remember reading Time magazine where there was a war on cholesterol, like when I was in college. And, me being 43 now, we've been misreporting for a long time.
Exactly.
And we've been telling people a lot of misinformation for a long time. And that's why I liked your talk so well at the Health Freedom Summit out there in Nashville, because you were talking about some of this stuff.
Oh yeah. And there's so many pieces of information that doctors have been promoting, and we inadvertently adopted some of their beliefs, didn't know it. Like, what's another example of something? Oh, the fear of selenium, that trace element, selenium, which again, when we talk about a lot of COVID manifestations, it's copper and selenium that are the most protective minerals against the damage caused by what? Whether you believe it's spike protein or something else at the microvasculature level, where oxygen, the blood cells go one at a time. And if those vessels are damaged at that level, and there's nowhere in the body that's more than 3 nanometers away from those microcapillary beds. We're talking 6 full-on tennis courts of surface area if you were to open up the body and open up all the vasculature. That's a lot in the body. And if any of that is damaged, and a lot of it is for a lot of reasons, including the wrong-headed idea that cholesterol is a problem as opposed to something that keeps us young and our brain and nervous system protected. So we got to understand the role of these minerals in conjunction with great chiropractic care.
Yeah, because I read here in your bio once again that you helped people with essential fats. And helping people.
Yeah.
And I think cholesterol got a bad rap because they weren't really understanding that there are healthy fats that are good cholesterol.
Oh,
And
yeah.
that's power for the brain.
Yeah, and it's the oxidation of the fats in the body, and that also is iron let loose in the absence of copper can create that oxidation and damage. So there's a lot to consider there. And you also mentioned vitamin D. We can certainly preferably get vitamin D production from sun exposure if you can. But if you're taking a lot of vitamin D and not seeing benefit, the question is, why isn't your body able to utilize it? And this gets into another fascinating discussion of nitric oxide production within the vasculature itself in the healthy endothelial layer. We're now learning about how that facilitates the use of stored vitamin D. So there is so much that we've missed or is just now being revealed. That's so exciting. That's why I can do a show 2 hours a day, 6 days a week, because there's never enough time to cover all that we're learning.
Well, I was just down in Puerto Rico at a mastermind, and I heard this guy, what's his name? Bobby. Anyways, this guy, he was one of the speakers down there at this event. And I have my notebook here next to me. Let me Bobby Castro is his name.
Okay. Yeah, I've heard of him.
And he one of the things he talked about was non-refundable minutes.
Hmm.
And that really resonated with me because we don't get our time back, and we have to really, do quality things with our time. And that's why I love our show, because what we do is we hit hard, and we bring in great guests to share with their genius to our audience, which I think is so essential this day and age.
Yes.
And one of my favorite questions that we ask on here, I know we're coming up on the last 10 minutes of our time together, but how do you see the profession of chiropractic moving forward in the next 20 years, just based on our conversation about the cellular level stuff,
Yeah.
but also from a fundamental perspective, and you being married to one? I think this would be a really good snapshot of your reality and how you see chiropractic moving forward as a healing art.
Well, I would like to believe that they would become the GPs of the future or present, right? And talk about the unfortunate programming in America we have that all kids must have a pediatrician, and pediatricians are glorified shot givers, right? And if they're not given shots, they're measuring the circumference of a baby's head to see if it's growing right. I mean, it's just not impressive. So I feel like, every time I get a chance, I say, if you've got kids and they don't have chiropractic care, you're missing out on something that could keep them out of medical care as a big part of this. But going back to, my experience with chiropractic first, and this is before I met my wife to be in all of that, that I was dealing with a pinched nerve in, between the shoulder blades. I was an athlete in college and even overcoming a lot of chronic diseases I had. And yet I continue to have to go back for the same adjustments very often. I'm like, why is that? And then it was years later, I began to understand what I was trying to intimate in our discussion, that there is a component to the physical, let's say integrity, the physical integrity of the body that is related to toxicity and deficiency. So that part of the expansion of the idea of just adjust and that's it, is ignoring the reality of the modern Western American or Westerner in the world of today, that they are not eating well and they are toxic and liver burdened. And then I learned in homeopathy that at the top of the liver point on the right-hand side behind there between the shoulder blades, the top of the liver is known as the chelidonium point. That's the homeopathic word chelidonium. It's a Latin name for the celandine plant. And it's indicative that there's liver congestion or stress. If you've ever, as a chiropractor, seen somebody with that point of sensitivity, and the people say, I don't know what happened. I didn't strain it. I have this, it's just bothering me, right? And I had that, and I called it a pinched nerve. It may have been partially that, but it was the constant congestion, the stress to the liver, the organ of elimination that was not being addressed. I mean, certainly you can promote the use of water, clean water, and hydrate. Absolutely. I don't dispute that. But what are we lacking in terms of nutrient support for the liver, selenium and other things, chromium, in fact, and or homeopathic drainage remedies to support the elimination pathways? And of course, the recommendations that maybe they ought to stop eating at the drive-through, all of those things. So I see, and again, this may be considered sacrilegious to the origin of chiropractic, but just acknowledgement of the realities as a homeopath too, because there are dogmas in homeopathy that say you should only give one remedy at a time, the simillimum, but that shifted in Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, who developed homeopathy in his latter years, as he began to see chronically ill patients among the aristocracy of France, the high society that could eat refined foods and sugars and abuse things like the peasants of Germany couldn't. So he was dealing with acute, strong diseased people and those with chronic degenerative lifestyle conditions. And he modified his approach to meet the people where they were, so that by doing this, the origins, I believe, of homeopathy, the origins of chiropractic begin to shine through again, because the people are healthier and respond so much better when they're not toxic and deficient. So the long version of this is shortened to say, I would envision the doctors of chiropractic of the future will embrace more and more of the understanding of how we can address the modern toxicity and deficiency to strengthen the original intent and purpose and vision of chiropractic, which is totally validated with this approach as well.
So you stirred something up in me, and a lot of our viewers might not know this, but chiropractically speaking, D.D. Palmer, he's the founder of chiropractic. He's chiropractor number one.
Mhm.
Like, he is, like, you can't get any more ground zero than D.D. And D.D. Was from Port Perry, Ontario. He's Canadian, and he came down to Davenport, Iowa, and he started the chiropractic profession based on the magnetic energy of the Mississippi River. It's the only place on the Mississippi River where the river runs from east to west instead of north to south. And D.D. Palmer was a magnetic healer.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people don't know this. When you said the body electric, my brain went immediately to D.D. Palmer and him being a magnetic healer. And I think that there's a lot of polarity in the body. You talking about this point, the top point of the liver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of chiropractors, they do muscle testing. They can tell where there's something out of alignment based on how your grip strength is, or how you can hold your little fingers together here. And they do these different types of functional testing, which is I can't remember the exact technique of it, but they can do the muscle testing to see where you have any type of subluxation going on. And a lot of it they can lead and trace back to deficiency in your micronutrients, which I think is absolutely it's impressive stuff.
Yeah.
I know we got about 4 minutes left here, but if you could sit down and have a drink or a coffee with anybody through history, who would it be?
Well, I was thinking, just to honor our chiropractic discussion, I mean, certainly any of the key founders, but in terms of a living guy, a buddy of mine who's in the chiropractic profession, I love dearly, and just everybody seems to have a blast with him, Billy DeMoss. Out west, and he did the Dead Chiropractic Society and the Cal Jam, and every time we can get together, it's going to be an adventure, a blast in that context. I just throw that out there as a thought of hanging out with people that are alive and vital, and really not afraid to speak up when something is going wrong out there, and to speak truthfully, honestly. And I don't mean pride goeth before the fall, but with pride, right? I mean, be proud of what you know. It is, even though it can still be derided by the allopathic Western reductionist mindset of people, to be bold in going out there. I think he's a great example of that. No, not everybody can do what Billy D does. I grant you that. But it's still an example of what is that spark within you that got you into chiropractic, and be that bold spark. Right? Be that living example for others. And then you're going to be the ones people are going to say, I want to hang out with that guy or that gal. Right? And so for me, it's all of those that are alive today, living that teaching, going back to DD and forward, and being that living example of healing, and lighten them up by your very being. And in that regard, I could name 1,000 people, but that just comes through today as I don't often do a chiropractic focused podcast, but I enjoy it so much because my love of the profession and the basic principles of it are so aligned with everything that I do and have become in my homeopathic world.
Well, thank you for taking the opportunity to position your message to the chiropractic world, because I think that we're stronger together than by ourselves, and we're more alike than we are different. And I really believe that there's a big message out there for us to continuously link arms together and support natural healing and natural health and natural remedies. The body heals from inside out. It doesn't need anything extra in it. It simply needs no interference. So if we can start clearing up those interference pathways, now the body is a self-healing, self-regulating organism, which is a beautiful thing. And that's what, we were intended to do. We weren't intended to have a deficiency in Advil, or we weren't intended to have a deficiency in albuterol. We weren't, we were born perfectly. And I think that we have an adulterated food source, we have an adulterated water source, and we're chemical dependent. Yeah. And the mechanical receptors in our brains are led to believe that they need something when they don't. Yeah. And really what you need real food, you need real relationships, you need real clean drinking water. And I think that you should get your sleep going, and you should have a sleep bank. If people have never heard me talk about this before, I think you should have a sleep bank. You should make deposits nightly. And if you don't make deposits nightly in your sleep bank, then you're going to go broke, because your sleep is definitely something that we need for regeneration. So,
and speaking of broke, I mean, our minds are broken by the programming to believe that healing is external to us, as opposed to, as I remind myself and others every day on my show, that the power to heal is theirs, it's yours, it's mine, it's ours. And, that's what lights me up when I see people get lit up just like that. Like, oh man, I can do this. Yeah, you can. You were born to do it.
Awesome, brother. So if people want to learn more about you, where can I send them to?
Just send them to my name, robertscottbell.com, robertscottbell.com. Sign up for email alerts. We're doing this show a lot. And I love to have more doctors of chiropractic on my show. I've featured many over the years. If you've got a story to tell, something that lights you up, you say, I need the world to know, outside of just your community, I'm happy to do it. Jim, we'll get you on my show and plug you for all the good work you're doing as well.
Well, Robert, I so thank you for being a part of the tapestry of our story of chiropractic. And thank you for making some time out of your busy schedule to be on our show today. And with that being said, I tell people, you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. And I just want you to have a great rest of your day, wherever you are today. And thank you so much for being on our show.
Thanks, Jim.
All right. Bye for now.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.